One. There it is. We're here. We're back. It's another beautiful week. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. Today, we're going to have an awesome show talking about balancing privacy and transparency in all of our relationships. So tune in. This will be fun. Here we go.
Practicing Polyamory, real-life perspectives from the imperfect people of polyamory. The mission of the Practicing Polyamory podcast is to provide a platform for all of the real-life, flawed humans that practice polyamory so that we might all learn from one another and grow as a community. Enjoy the show.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this beautiful Monday. A little bit cloudy down here in Southern California. That must be changing the weather time. If you're joining us for the first time, I want to say welcome and thank you so much for tuning in. And if you've been here for a while, then you already know that we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So you've got 3 opportunities every week to ask questions. If you have questions about your relationships, or if there's a topic you'd like to hear discussed in this show, slide into my DMs and let me know, or leave a comment while we're recording live. Follow the show on all social media platforms at Practicing Poly, and let me know what it is that you want us to talk about. And as always, I want to remind you, if you're listening to this program, you are a welcome guest to be on the show. None of us are perfect, and we're here to share all of our imperfect stories, because the more stories we share, the more others will see us in themselves, and the more representation we have, the more we can strengthen our community. So go to practicingpolyamory.com, sign up to share your imperfect story too. All right, everybody, that's my spiel. And now the best part of the show, introducing today's awesome guest. Today's guest believes deeply in the power of self-awareness. With greater knowledge of ourselves and of our individual contributions, our guest believes that we can co-create a society and culture that's based in love, is life-affirming, is ecologically regenerative, and is deliciously sexy. Our guest believes that intimacy is a core piece of that ideal society and of wider cultural interactions as a whole today. She is on a mission to help her clients discover their vulnerabilities and soften their edges, leading to increased confidence and security and allowing for deeper, more intimate connections. While we poly folks all love the idea of having multiple deep and intimate connections, we can get ourselves into hot water with our other partners, other relationships, if we share things that shouldn't be shared. Tune in today to hear from our guests how we can approach this in a loving, authentic way, tuning into our hearts and bodies, and discover how to match our personal communication styles with our partners to create harmony and trust among the polycule. Joining us today from Lovage Somatic Sex and Relationship Coaching out of San Francisco, California, welcome to the show, Annie Boheler. Woo!
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm really happy to be here today.
Really happy to have you. I can, for some reason, barely hear you. Before the show, you were fine, and all of a sudden, the volume went down. I don't know if you put something in front of the microphone or...
How's this?
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
I can also...
Yeah. Welcome, Annie. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here today. Let's start. Just tell us a little bit. Oh, dang, I messed up. Oh, boy. Got to fix that. Producer, can you get that banner fixed for me? I'll send you the stuff. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and, what brought you here where you are today.
Well, it's been a journey. Definitely my studies through ecology have led me, about 5 years ago to start diving into the relationships between humans, because ecology is all about relationships. And I'm a permaculturist and a gardener. I love spending time outside. I grew up in a horse barn, training and riding horses. So, I'm particularly interested, just like in kind of a foundational way, our psychology with the larger ecosystems and how centralizing this piece around our intimacy can have a ripple effect on our relationship in general in life, with the rest of the world, our work life, everything. So that's a huge part of my passion and focusing on intimacy and sex.
I love it. When you talk about somatics, like that really like that brings it into a core, like into our inner selves. And it sounds like it's like inner work that we need to do to be able to kind of make those connections. Can you tell me a little bit about how we bridge that?
How we bridge somatics with what?
Creating intimacy.
Mm. Well, when we're sharing, processing, when we're trying to kind of figure out clarity and perhaps a decision or in relationship, if we're not listening to the entirety of our bodies, we're probably missing some information. So if we're processing with someone in a more cognitive oriented way, like just talking, and if we can just slow down that story and that sharing and really tune in to the rest of the nervous system, we can possibly just get even more information about what's
Mm.
going on. So our story, our history, our desires are shared throughout, are stored and shared throughout our entire bodies, not just our genitals, not just our heads, but everywhere. So it's really just like creating space for the entire body to be on board.
Last week I was talking with somebody, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but that word physiological came to mind, and like to me, like that's the connection between the mind, the psyche, right, and the way that our body feels. How is that different from like somatics and the things that you do,
I mean, that's a
or
huge,
how's it ingrained, I guess?
yeah, that's a part of it. And it's not just our psyche, but it's also like our digestive system. Our digestive system has like a huge part of our nervous system orients around our digestion. And so that can affect our mental and emotional clarity, like what's happening in our digestive system. We have a nerve called the vagus nerve that's connected all the way from our genitals to our digestion to the front and back of our brain that really impact our ability to connect socially and to connect to our primal, both fight, flight, freeze responses,
Hmm.
and also that primal passion, being able to be in our bodies, being able to be in that space where we can really access both. Um, like for orgasm, for example, you need to be able to access both excitement and relaxation at the same time,
Oh, okay.
which is why if people have trauma, which could include sexual trauma, it could include a car wreck, any
Hmm.
sort of disruption to the nervous system can impact that ability to be both excited and relaxed at the same time. So it could, just as an example, affect somebody's ability to, to move towards a arousal or orgasm.
Got it. So back to that word balance, right? You got to have both that relaxation and excitement. I love it. So, we're talking today about balancing privacy and transparency in our relationships. So what exactly does that mean to you? Like that was something that you said is important, like an important lesson that you've learned about polyamory in general. What exactly does that mean?
Mhm. Well, I feel like in all relationships, I mean, we always have a right to our privacy. We ought
Hmm.
to remain autonomous and to not move towards codependency. We do have a right to privacy. We have a right to our boundaries and what in our process as we're getting to know somebody, as we're building that trust. And at the same time, it's hard to build that trust and intimacy if we don't share.
Right.
So it really is that balance, and there's so many factors that influence
Like what?
that. Well, let's. Where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a bunch of different things, and I know that there's, a lot of times that it's going to be situationally specific, right? Like there's going to be certain things that I won't share about my partners, but my partner might, I might give my partner permission to share it, but they might not be comfortable with me sharing it. So like, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be situational, but
Yeah,
kind of in a broad sense. This is kind of a broad topic, like
yeah.
how do we how do we balance that? Like, um, she's gonna listen and she's gonna hear it right away. So I made this new connection over the weekend, right? Just like started chatting with someone new, and I'm pretty open in general anyway. So I've got this podcast and I've had a few episodes where I talk about a lot of details and things that have happened in my life. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of just openness here, but you know how do I know, or how do other people know, where the line is? Like, what do we need to do? What work do we need to do to make sure that we don't cross any lines that we didn't mean to?
Yeah. It's a great question. And like you said, it's so situational, and it's personal where somebody's at. I think it's really important to practice asking ourselves why we're asking a question when we're trying to get to know somebody, and also why we're answering. Or if you're in a long term committed relationship, why is it important to share? Um, and because we can sometimes feel like, I know for me, I have felt like, oh, I'm supposed to share, even
Hmm.
um, if I'm not necessarily ready or comfortable, and because I don't want this person to feel rejected, or I don't want to lose this person, or because they ask, I should share because we share intimacy, all sorts of things that later looking back, I'm like, actually, like, I wasn't really ready to share that information. Um, so I think it's good to just kind of like meditate for ourselves, kind of come back to the intention behind
Hmm.
sharing. Um, yeah,
Okay. So we want to come back to the intention behind sharing. I mean, the intention, I think, is usually we want to, create, establish, strengthen whatever connection that we might have. Are
mhm,
there any things maybe that like I should stay away from sharing? Is there anything that I should be like, this is like when you're talking to somebody for the second time ever, like you probably don't want to tell them your social security number. I don't know. Like, what are some things that maybe, we should hold off on or wait on?
yeah. Well, I can give an example from my life,
Yeah.
that I've I've had to learn about myself through experience, where this could be with somebody who's newer to me, or somebody where I do have a longer term relationship and want to continue that. When we're learning about our past experiences, maybe we're sharing about ex partners or other people in our life where we share intimacy. I have a preference where I really don't want to know details. And I've had people share kind of details about their intimacy with other people,
Hmm.
and I can't unknow something. And like, I
Right.
wish I didn't know this information. Um, and that's up to me to express that boundary. Like, I would love to share these stories, but I just don't want to know details. And also questioning, like, that person we're talking about, if we are sharing about our history or whatever, what does it look like? Um, you know, honoring their privacy, when we're sharing.
Got it. So if we have partners and but you said other relationships too. Um so I'm thinking like in a partnership we definitely want to have the conversation of like, what are you okay with me sharing and what are you not okay with me sharing? Like, you know, if I meet somebody new, is it okay if I share about, the things that we do in the bedroom, or would you rather keep those things private? Like that's a conversation that I can have with a partner, right? Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Um, yeah, I mean, if that conversation feels appropriate for where you're at with somebody, definitely. Yeah. And then because it's so personal, like,
Right.
somebody might get turned on by that and love it, and somebody might feel um, really uncomfortable with that. So it's just a matter of, like, we always have a right to ask questions with people we're sharing intimacy with. So it's, if you're wondering that, like, yeah. And I think when we ask that question, it might be like, coming back to the intention, because we
Mhm.
don't know how our partner is going to respond. So we just have to prep ourselves. Hey, I might be disappointed because might not be ready for this conversation, or I might really want to share this thing and they're not ready, or whatever. So there could be disappointment, or just having that conversation about pacing in relationship.
Mhm.
We all have different paces.
Right.
And so, oh, okay, I'm not ready for that conversation, or I'm not ready to share about that yet, or I'm not comfortable with you sharing with your other partners anything about us like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so just being open to hearing and negotiating, what does that look like, if they're not ready for that.
Yeah, as you were talking about it, I was thinking, like bracing or preparing myself for hearing no,
Mhm.
right? And that could be, as you said, disappointing. Like I'm ready to share this, with this other person, but you're not ready for me to get there for whatever reason. But of course, I want to respect your privacy, so you know, um, you have a right to that too. But for me, as I'm kind of like dealing with that, I guess, dealing with you telling me no, there's something that you mentioned about like nervous system regulation, and like that's what like comes to mind is like, okay, I got to like prepare myself and like kind of prepare my
Mhm.
mind, my body for hearing no. Is that what you
Mhm.
mean by that, or you mean something completely different and I'm way off?
Mm. No, I love that. I wasn't. That's a piece of it. That's a huge piece of it, because one, most of us don't want to disappoint people we love, and we don't want to be disappointed by people we love, even though it's inevitable in relationships. Like, we're going to do that, just by the nature of us all being different.
Hmm.
And so practicing being in that disappointment, or like being with your partner in that disappointment, like, I'm sorry to disappoint you, this is where I'm at, but you know how else could I comfort you right now? Like, would you like a hug, or maybe we could cuddle, or whatever, to be with them in that moment.
Hmm.
Because we so often like bypass that. We don't want to feel that disappointment. And so being in that and knowing you don't have to be alone in that. Maybe if your partner can't support you, you could find a friend, or however you can be with that disappointment, so that it doesn't that energy can move through us. Because so often if we bypass it, it could lead to building resentment, or it could lead to something else, um, if we don't give ourselves that time.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, we definitely want to allow it to get processed through our body, right? I'm assuming that that's like a part of what you teach through somatics, right? Like kind of processing that. Can you tell me a little bit about what someone might go through when they're processing anything like that
Mm.
in
Sure.
terms of somatics?
Yeah. Um, I will give I'll give a specific example that is somewhat common. When people are out in the dating world, or perhaps they have a partner, um, and they're not ready to go to the next level of intimacy, whatever that might look like, sharing personal information, or perhaps it's physical. Um, but they want to keep that connection. And so there's this conflict of, okay, I actually have this boundary, I'm not ready, but I'm fearful, and often that leads to shame.
Hmm.
Like, and so I often find myself helping people kind of just process that, and like, what does that look like to have that boundary, and to really be listening to yourself while working towards staying in connection with that partner, um, so that we're not, you know, festering in like guilt or shame about how our personal boundaries are impacting our partner. We can like help process that, because it can get sticky really easily.
Are you talking about like some kind of shame or guilt for saying no?
That's common. Yeah. Also saying yes by overriding, like you saying yes and maybe feeling regretful, or it didn't go
Hmm.
the way they planned, or yeah. Um,
So it's like if somebody happens all the time, right? Like you really want to say no, but you say yes because you just don't want to disappoint the other person, but like
mm,
you can feel it, right? I,
yeah.
I'm trying to like kind of draw that out, in terms of somatics and the things that you teach and the methods that you use. Like, what are the ways that people can really learn to trust that instinct, that like your body's telling you no, like there's something inside of you that's saying you don't want to do this, but you're saying yes because you don't want to disappoint the
Mhm,
other person. So
mm,
like how do you help people like give themselves permission to advocate for themselves?
mm. Well, both through conversation and also just really clearing that space for this is a conflict. It is like a paradox. Like part of you might actually want to, and part of you doesn't. And that's confusing. And how can we spend time making more space for both? So, one exercise or experience that might look like is really focusing, maybe it's a visualization on this, this, whatever the circumstances with the yes, and just kind of being with that, maybe imagining it inside, or maybe describing it, or maybe doing role playing,
Hmm.
giving that attention, and then kind of taking a few breaths, kind of noticing the impact of that um, imaginative visualization, and then going over to the other scenario and giving that really specific attention. Once again, role playing, maybe just doing the visual or whatever
Hmm.
that person is comfortable with. Um, and really giving both of those space to kind of process in their own time without going back and forth, so that they can kind of feel in their bodies like, what was that like? Was
Hmm.
one a little more easy than the other? That's one way that we kind of help create space for, if we're, oh, I really want to share with my partner, but I just kind of feel pressured. So that's like triggering me. Um, a lot of people have sexual trauma. And so, you know, when it comes to balancing that privacy and transparency, um, it's not necessarily associated with trauma. Like everybody just has that right to their privacy and their personal preferences around how they share.
Hmm.
Um, and also trauma can affect that greatly as well. So really being gentle with that process, and um, and partners, if you have a partner who has trauma, encouraging your partner to, like, you know, educate themselves around that as well.
Yeah, let's dig into that. I mean, trauma is definitely a part of everything that you do. It can be easier for someone to do like a visualization process or something along those lines, if they're not also dealing with some kind of a traumatic experience around that. So, if somebody does have, you know, some kind of trauma, sexual or otherwise, like, um, what are some what are some methods that you use to help people kind of tap, I don't know if it's tap into it or just kind of overcome it so
Mhm.
that they can find that authenticity and be true to themselves?
Well, it's very much with somatic experiencing. That's the modality I have training with. It's very much based on titration. So just really little bit by little bit, working around the situation in whatever way that person's comfortable, because we're not wanting to re-traumatize.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, I'll give kind of a foundational example of, like, if someone's actually in a trigger, or to help them practice nervous system regulation, so that if they get triggered, they can help themselves not escalate as much to overwhelm. Um, and just being present in the present moment. That's a part of healing trauma, is just like practicing being present. Um, and so there's a really simple exercise where take a few breaths, looking around the larger space that you're in, and bringing your attention to three. or so objects, or where just noticing what your attention's drawn to.
Okay.
Taking a breath and then doing the same for your body. It could
Hmm.
even be like the texture of your clothes or like the temperature of your skin, something more surface level, or a sensation or feeling. Taking a breath and then doing the same for the larger environment that you're sitting in. And so this is orientation to presence. And so practicing that in this really basic way, it's very calming and grounding.
Hmm.
And doing that when you're in a calm space, especially with another person, can really be helpful. So that in relationship, if we trigger our partner or get triggered, um, we can help that situation not escalate so much.
Got it. Yeah, it sounds like almost like a meditative practice. It sounds like uh something that my ex was saying to me this weekend. Like, all we have is now, right? We have right now, and before it gets here, it's already gone,
Mhm.
right? But all we have is right now. So, like, doing that exercise, I'm over here, I'm folding laundry, so I got a pile of underwear over there, and trash can down there, and my Chargers piggy bank, like uh, San Diego Chargers, by the way, not the stupid LA Chargers. Anyway, that's a whole different topic. So, like, bringing my mind to these things, and then I really like the one that you said, like, okay, so those three things that are external, and then three things in my body, and coming back to the now just kind of is recentering, so that I'm not I can take my mind out of that triggering traumatic experience. Is that am I going the right way?
Well, not so much necessarily taking yourself out of it, but integrating it. It's like, okay, this thing happened, whatever it is, um, and and not we tend to spiral our brains
Hmm.
fixate on things, and really just kind of, yeah, bringing ourselves back into the present moment, it regulating our nervous system. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we are just coming up on time here. I wanted to ask you if there's anything that I missed, if there's anything that you wish that I had asked, or any final thoughts, something that you might want to touch on that I just didn't quite get to.
Hmm. I guess I'll say one more thing about the privacy and transparency. There's a lot of factors that play into that, like our attachment styles, our history, just so many things. And we often tend to be attracted to, or we are easily attracted to people who operate opposite of us, who might be more, prefer more transparency to privacy. And really, if there's frustration coming up in a relationship around this, reminding ourselves that we're all just different, and so much of if we're feeling challenged around this at all, is just like we're just different, and there's nothing wrong with how people are, and once again, that pacing, and if it's causing an issue in the relationship, then kind of having a conversation about that,
Hmm.
um, but really being gentle on ourselves, gentle on our partners, and acknowledging that we're all just different. Um, and yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
journey.
We got to give permission, I guess. Give ourselves permission to be ourselves, give our partners permission to be themselves. My brother and I, we talk about this all the time. We're very different politically, and other things, but it's we give each other space and time to just listen and understand, and I think it's kind of you know along the same lines.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Well, Annie, um, if somebody wanted to work with you, if somebody wants to follow you, if somebody wants to get in touch with you in any way, what's the best way that they can do that? And for our listening audience, make sure you let them know.
Yeah, you can reach me at annielovage.net. My email is my last name, Boheler, Boheler, and Lovage, Lovage, at gmail.com. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. That's my Instagram at Rewilding Intimacy, and my name is Annie Boheler.
Perfect. All right, Annie. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it. It's been fun chatting with you, learning with you a little bit. Really appreciate your time.
You too, James. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, as always, to our live audience for tuning in today. As a reminder, when we're live, you get no commercial interruptions, but the same can't be said for those podcast downloads. So if you want to avoid the commercial interruptions, be sure to catch us live Monday through Wednesday, 2:30 Pacific time, or sign up for Patreon where you get access to our commercial-free RSS feed and support the show. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and wherever it is that you download your podcast if you haven't already, and please leave us a review. We'll really appreciate it. That is all we've got for you all today. Thank you once again, Annie. Thank you, everybody. And until next time, as always,
have a nice day. Thank you for tuning in to the Practicing Polyamory podcast. Would you or someone in your polycule like to be a guest? Sign up at practicingpolyamory.com and join the conversation. Please support us by subscribing, liking, and following us on social media at Practicing Polya by clicking any of the affiliate links on our website or by subscribing at patreon.com/practicingpolya.